Welcome to the Flower Lounge, a place for conversations with wildly creative people and a little plant-loving wisdom to help you experience life in full bloom. I'm Katie Hess, flower alchemist and founder of LOTUSWEI, and I believe in a world where we're all living at our personal edge. Welcome to the Moonshine edition of the Flowerlounge Podcast. As always, I'm here with Kristina Wingeier, and we are going to be talking about February 2020.
How did we get here, Katie? What happened? It went by really fast. This year is... We were just talking before we started recording about how fast everything seems to be going. We've entered into a new dimension, it feels like to me. Warp speed. Okay, February.
I remember when it was like a big deal that we were going from, like, what is it, Y2K, right? When we went to the year 2000.
Yeah,
that was like a big deal.
That was a big deal. That was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I feel old. But it feels, and perhaps it's that eclipse season, it really feels like the energy, it just feels like things shifted into another dimension of speed. That's how it's felt like this year. And the fact that it's already February seems to
it's whizzing by. And I should mention too, if you're listening and you haven't yet listened to the episode that came a couple of weeks ago with Angie Cho and the Chinese New Year, if you're interested in Chinese astrology, definitely check that out. That was a fun one, wasn't it?
Yes.
And do you like that?
I love it. I actually love learning more about Chinese astrology. And I love learning that there are actually 4 pillars, 4 animals in your astrology and Chinese astrology. I don't know the right language for it. That was really
it's kind of like rising moon.
Yeah.
Sun.
Like I think there's an hour that you were born and then your year and then the day of the week and the month. So when I found out that I was born in the hour of the golden dragon, and I just thought that was so cool. Because I'm a sheep or a ram, and a lot of times that animal is portrayed as being kind of like, I don't know, like
sheepish
and soft, and you know, the Western version of the sheep is kind of like can be led very easily or very docile. And I'm like, I am not docile. But then I found out that I was born in a fire year in the hour of the golden dragon. I'm like, oh, okay, now I understand. There's more to me. Like more to knowing that your sun sign, because your sun sign really is only one tiny piece of your whole profile. So.
Exactly. It's super complex.
It is.
And then we did actually get a lot of requests for folks. We heard you. We got a lot of requests from folks on email and social media to do a year-long snapshot with Kristina, and we will do that. We'll do that in the first quarter. I mean, we're already like...
Yeah, and we won't talk about the months we've already passed through. We've already lived them. But we'll give an overview.
It's on deck.
Yeah, it's time has been going fast and lots of projects, and it's hard to get everything done, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It is. Well, I wrote in my newsletter this morning that I sent out that, yes, time is going really fast, but February brings us our first Mercury Retrograde. So maybe that'll be a good thing. And I know everybody gets all like fear of the Mercury Retrograde. It's really not that big a deal. It happens 3 times a year. And that's one of the big things that's happening in February.
I guess it's a slowdown period, right?
Because it's a slowdown
so fast.
That's right. It may bring a little confusion, but, life can be confusing. So that's one of the big things this month. And I think I'm just going to get into the aspects. So speaking of Mercury, let's just start with Sunday, the 2nd of February. Is that Groundhog Day? February is a funny month that like has Groundhog Day. And then this year we have leap year as well.
We have leap year this year?
It has 29 days this month.
Oh.
Leap year. Anyway, I don't know why I'm digressing.
And Valentine's Day. Groundhogs, Valentine's.
And leap.
Leaps.
I mean, what is that? What is that? What is that? That's an interesting sequence. Because the groundhog is like, over and over. It's the same thing over and over again, right? That's the whole thing behind that. And then Valentine's Day is always a disappointment. Leap year. What I was reading about leap year actually was that it used to be a time where women would propose to men. I mean, it's very gendered, obviously, but it was this kind of backwards kind of day. So anyway.
Isn't it in Japan? Am I remembering correctly that in Japan on Valentine's Day, women all give chocolate to the men?
I have no idea.
I'll have to double check myself on that. Anytime chocolate's involved, it's a good thing.
Valentine's Day is just a weird day. That's all. And it's going to be so near the Mercury retrograde, so it's definitely going to be like an extra weird one. That'll be fun. So speaking of the Mercury retrograde, on Sunday, February 2nd, which might be Groundhog Day, Mercury is actually going to get into its retrograde shadow. So for those of you who really like to pay attention to the retrogrades and the degrees and all of these things, this is when Mercury is going to cross over the degree on which it's going to station direct. So when it stations direct on March 9th, it'll be here at 28 degrees Aquarius. So this is just kind of like things that are starting to show up, like mental intrigues and like, confusion, curiosities. They might return for resolution around that time, or those of you who are more sensitive to the Mercury retrograde might start to feel the energies, whatever. So I just thought I'd mention that because the retrograde itself and the shadow is things can start to show up and like really kind of like subtle, like hints of things,
And when does the actual retrograde hit? I know I'm jumping ahead here. Oh, 16.
Yeah. But on Monday, the 3rd, Mercury moves into Pisces. Okay. So this is going to be a long stay in Pisces with a little dip back into Aquarius, right? Sweet words. Except for Mercury is like not the happiest in Pisces because
you can't really get the words out.
Because there's not like too much information coming through that's like all like murky and intuitive and not necessarily logical. And unless you really have a strong resilience and connection to intuitive thinking, then when things aren't logical, and Mercury likes logic. Mercury is more right brain. So when it gets into this left brain situation, no, Mercury's left brain. What's brain is that?
Right.
Whatever. Mercury's logical. Pisces is not the most logical sign. And so when Mercury gets into Pisces, it's not the most logical time. So it's like a boot camp for your intuition. Right? Mercury in Pisces, and energetic boundaries are really important whenever there's planets in Pisces. And we're going to have, the sun will move into Pisces this month, the new moon in Pisces this month, Mercury is in Pisces for the retrograde. So it's a lot of interesting Pisces stuff to swim through, shall we say. And then, so that's Monday. That's the first day Mercury moves into Pisces, the 3rd of February. And then on Wednesday, that Mercury in Pisces is going to make a nice little connection to Uranus and Taurus. It's a sextile. I don't really always talk about the sextiles, but I like this aspect because Mercury and Uranus are like aspects of the mind, kind of. Mercury is like logical and Uranus is more of a like flashes of insight and kind of really innovative thinking and out of the box kind of thing. So I feel like this connection between them is inviting us to be open-minded to a new idea. That is happening on Wednesday, which is Mercury's day, which is another kind of, just emphasis on that energy. And so just be open to something new. And it may come in a non-logical way, like not straightforward. It might be like, for example, maybe you hear a song and you hear a lyric in a song. That's exactly the message that you needed to hear in that moment and helps you solve a problem or, shift a position, something like that. Just be open to things coming in unusual ways. And especially through music and poetry, and that's all Pisces domain. And then Friday the 7th, Venus changes signs. She'll move into Aries, and Venus will be in Aries through March 4th. And so this is going to bring more assertive energy and making decisions around Venus topics like love and money, things like that. Venus has been in Pisces for a while, which is very compassionate and, open-hearted and really soft and gentle. And this is a much more independent, assertive kind of energy, or fireier, right? It's a fire sign. So that is a shift in those dimensions, which should be interesting for Valentine's Day, as we were talking about that earlier. So maybe don't wait to be asked out on that date. Maybe you do the asking. If you know what I mean? Like just kind of taking that bold step to ask for what you want because your heart knows what you want and just kind of go for it. Maybe that might be fun. And then we end that week, the 8th and the 9th. It's happening depending on what time zone you live in, the full moon in Leo. I'm going to pull up that chart actually. So we have the Leo full moon, very late night on the 8th in California. So it's going to put it in on February 9th for many folks. And so the themes for Leo are, of course, like leadership and creative projects, children, a big theme with Leo, and also this kind of need for attention. Like Leo energy really wants to be looked at and appreciated and kind of stroked and seen for all the like generous kind of gifts that the Leo brings to the situation, right? And so there may be a little bit of acting out because there's a lot of fire in this chart. The moon is making a pretty strong trine to Mars in Sagittarius in this chart. And then there's a third planet that we don't talk about a lot, a dwarf planet called Eris, which is also completing the grand fire trine in Aries. And so there's a lot of kind of heat, which is pretty passionate. But I feel like if someone's not getting the attention they want, or if you feel like you're not getting the attention you want, there may be this desire to kind of act out or kind of throw a little energetic tantrum. I don't know. It's just, I look at this chart and I'm like, ooh, it's spicy. But the sun, which is opposite the moon during the full moon, is in the sign of Aquarius, which is a very kind of cool-headed, detached, kind of logical place for the sun to be. And so it's kind of like a cool mind and a hot heart, you know? And so I wrote down me, myself, and how do I fit into the collective? Like, you know, what, it's not just about me, but like, what can I, you know, how can I share my gifts in a way that actually is not just so everyone looks at me, but that so I'm helping or contributing or bringing this to the relationship or whatever. So there's also this kind of wild Mars energy. Mars is in, you know, finishing up in Sagittarius, but Mars is doing something for a while where it's called it travels out of bounds. Have you heard of that before? Do you know what that is about, Katie?
Yeah, I think we've talked about it a couple of times on the Moonshine episodes where it goes out of its normal orbit and kind of
it's like
goes rogue.
Yeah, it goes a little rogue. It's like either, I'm not sure at this point, I'll just look at the declination. Mars is either much more north or much more south than it usually is of its normal travel route. And so when the planet travels out of bounds, it can be a little unpredictable or rogue, like Katie said. So the moon trying this like out of bounds Mars, that's what I mean about like maybe people might be a little, you know, act out, or you might feel the need to kind of really move some of your energy and be tempted to kind of throw a fit because these things can happen. The full moon is always the peak moment. It's always a lot of energy. It's always, you know, kind of intense time where people can get very lunacy, you know, can go kind of crazy. No, they're not going to go crazy. But anyway, it looks like a fun moon to me if you can just keep your wits about you. Don't let yourself fall into some kind of drama that, you know, just to feel better. I did that the last full moon. Trust me, it does not feel good in the long run.
Wasn't worth it, huh?
No, it wasn't worth it. But it's a pretty chill full moon compared to the recent months, eclipse season and whatnot. So that's what I got to say about that.
And you enjoy it.
The full moon?
Enjoy it, huh? Go dancing.
Go dancing. It is a Friday and Saturday night, I think.
Take the lead.
Friday. Yeah, take the lead because Venus is in Aries. Right? Venus has just moved into Aries. Yeah, take the lead.
Play with children.
Invite your child out to play. Like, I don't know, get out some crayons and paint and draw.
Oh, like your own inner child. I see.
Yeah. Like, do something fun with your kid. Your child in real life or your inner child. I've been thinking a lot about reparenting the inner child. I mean, all last year because of where the nodes are, but I really think that play is a very underrated skill set in the time of now. Like people just don't play enough like games or paint or draw or just be like children. So I feel like that might be a nice way to free the energy, is just to be playful.
You know, what that was one of the things that was so remarkable this year about the holidays between December and January in my house. We played tons of games and it was so fun. It's such a nice way to spend time in a group.
Mm-hmm. What'd you guys play?
Oh my gosh. Card games and trivia kind of games and drawing games, and one really terrible one that I was no good at, where you like put your mouth through this little window box and you have to say something but no sound come out and they have to read your lips. Oh, it was terrible. I
don't even understand. It's like lip charades.
Oh yeah, it's terrible. I mean, give me the ones with like speed and colors and shapes, and I'm on it. But
we played
and lip reading, not my favorites.
No.
But just like fun little games it's a really enjoyable way to spend time.
That is fun. We played one game on Christmas, Cards Against Humanity, which is kind of raunchy. Have you played that game?
I haven't.
Oh my God. I did slay though. I won. I was like, so good. I don't know. I was in a mood, but that game is probably some of the listeners know about it, but maybe not because it's such more about, it's kind of raunchy. It's kind of fun though. But some of the things I wouldn't say. I'd like, no, I'm not going to say this. I just put it back in the box and pick another card. Some of the things are really gross. But games are fun. I like
Jenga. What about Pictionary? Did you like Pictionary? Oh, Jenga's fun.
Jenga's really fun.
Did you do Pictionary?
I feel like I did, but I have to admit that I'm not the biggest game player. But I am very Uno? Yeah, I used to play a lot of Uno.
We played Uno. I had to like reteach myself I just didn't even remember how to play.
Uno. What else what's in the... Oh, I like Scrabble. Scrabble's fun. But have you ever seen like a human-sized Jenga? Is there such a thing?
Feels heavy.
Well, maybe it could be made out of foam.
Oh, okay.
This is going to make it kind of fun because you can walk all the way around it and like find the one to take out, you know?
Okay. So it would really up the ante there.
Maybe
like
yoga blocks.
Dies when you pull out the roll.
I know it's like Hunger Games with Jenga. The Jenga games. All right. So that's what the full moon is going to feel like. This is what it's going to be like, everyone. We're going to be talking about Jenga and life-size Jenga and playing funny games. And
Leos are pretty competitive, right? Like
Leos are pretty competitive.
Yeah.
I think all fire signs are kind of competitive.
So that'd be fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I just feel like Leo likes to perform. So maybe like charades, like definitely things that require creativity. So like you're moving your body or you're drawing a picture or you're singing a song, karaoke. Oh, it'd be such a fun karaoke night, I think. To get up on stage and be like a superstar, you know, like karaoke style. Because I don't know if you've ever watched karaoke, but people that like karaoke and do it regularly, they always have their little shtick in their songs that they sing and they like to like get into the performance of it. So I think that would be a fun night to watch or sing karaoke.
What's the one that you stick it's on your phone and you stick it on your forehead and you have to guess?
Is it called Heads Up?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
There's one in there that's accents.
Uh-oh.
That would be fun. And you'd be bomb at that. Both you and I would be really good at that.
So politically incorrect.
I know.
Okay. That's how we roll. Have fun on the full moon, y'all. It's coming early in the month. And then we have week 2, beginning with Monday, the 10th. And there's a Venus-Chiron conjunction in Aries. And I think that it's kind of interesting because I didn't know we would talk so much about being playful and being like children in this podcast. And I had written down like the healing of a childhood wound on the heels of the full moon in Leo. So it's really going to depend on how you interact with your inner child and with the inner child of those around you on that full moon. This might be where you're feeling like, oh my God, I had so much fun. I really felt seen and I felt a part of the community and we played the games or whatever. And I feel like something got healed in me, you know? Or it could be like, I didn't get the attention I needed. Gosh darn it. Why do they always get to sing twice and I only sing one, whatever. And then you're just like, mad. So you get to choose how you want to experience this aspect by your actions on the weekend with the full moon in Leo. And there's really not a lot of aspects going on. It's a pretty quiet month. But so we have that conjunction and the moon does what the moon does, which is start to wane and release energy. And it moves through, you know, several signs through the course of the week. And then what we have on the weekend, on Saturday, the 16th, we have 2 things that are of astrological importance. We have, of course, the Mercury Retrograde that I mentioned at the top of the hour. And so that happens through March 9th. So February 16th through March 9th. If you're into the degrees, it's stationing retrograde at 12 degrees Pisces, back through 28 degrees Aquarius, right? So this is where you want to look at your chart to see the life areas and topics that might be highlighted by this retrograde. We also did have a Mercury retrograde last February, March in Pisces, in different part of the sign, but it's an interesting revisiting of that energy with a dip into air at the end with that Aquarius. And so, yeah.
So would you look back then at
I might
February?
I kind of thought about that, and the degrees it's not overlapping any degrees. So I would definitely not think that it's going to be the same kind of experience, but it's going to be the same part of your chart, the same house, the same life area. So there might be something that you're revising or reviewing from last year around this time, right? But the best way to understand it is to again, look at that Pisces in your natal chart to understand the house that it's affecting, or take my masterclass on Mercury Retrograde. The masterclass is on February 14th, Valentine's Day. And there's a sign-up link on my website. So you could come and learn about the whole retrograde cycle this year and about this Mercury retrograde. Yeah, the master classes are really fun. We have plenty of time.
Chocolate.
For students, can whatever they want. But we look at charts, students' charts, and help people understand what's happening for them. It's really sweet. But in general, it's Mercury retrograde in Pisces. We've got some things not making a lot of sense. This is when we listen to a lot of talking heads, okay, during Mercury in retrograde in Pisces. And it's kind of like fuzzy-headed thinking, right? Just like a little, I don't know, right now, the thing that just came in my mind. Have you ever watched the movie Elf? You know that movie with Will Ferrell? I don't know. There's this one point where Elf is upset because he thinks he's an idiot. And he says, I'm a cotton-headed something, something. And this is like a cotton-headed something, something, because your mind is just it's like cotton candy mind. Like things are kind of floaty and things aren't necessarily super clear and direct, which will be interesting in the news cycle. But all the usual Mercury retrograde things, right? Review, revise, retreat, rethink, reset. The mind is going more inward. It's definitely more like creative and spiritual and kind of psychic insights. So there may be a lot coming in, or you might be feeling things more intensely, or might be feeling more sensitive and having a harder time communicating. Sometimes when Mercury is in a water sign, it's almost like it's mute, doesn't communicate in the same way. It's a little more like mind reading. I think you talked about that when you go out to dinner with Pisces and you guys all just know what you're going to talk about that thing, because you know what I'm talking about.
We can't order food, but we just sort of sit in silence and merge with the spaciousness of all that is. And you don't really need to, if you're traveling with Pisces, you don't really need to say let's go here. Let's make a plan. You just sort of next, and everybody kind of rolls along. It's really comfortable. You don't have to overthink it. You just perceive.
That's what we need to do for this Mercury retrograde. Don't overthink it. Just perceive. Right?
Just resting in the present moment and grooving with whatever it gives you.
Exactly.
Riding the waves.
Riding the waves. So listen, the few days before, the few days after this retrograde, things might be really funny. Things slow down. Things get irregular. If you can avoid signing contracts and buying electrical things, that's great. But if you can't, don't be a fool. Do what you need to do. It's not, these retrogrades happen 3 times a year. You know by now how to navigate it. Just make more time for travel. If things are confusing, don't try to figure them out. Rest in the spaciousness. Allow yourself to perceive instead of think about everything and try to make sense. Put on the talking heads, and it's going to be fine. It's going to be okay. The other thing that happens on the same day is Mars changes signs. So Mars has been in Sagittarius for a minute, and now Mars is moving into Capricorn. And so Mars is going to be in Capricorn through March 30th. This is a very productive Mars. Mars is said to be exalted in Capricorn. So it's like a workhorse, right? And this is going to kind of give you the courage and really the turn on ignition. I feel like it's going to turn on the ignition in some changes that maybe you've been sitting on in that Capricorn house, because so much happened in Capricorn with the eclipses and all the planets and the big conjunction. And so it's kind of resting after a really big event. And now perhaps with this Mars moving into Capricorn, there's going to be some kind of ambition activated, or okay, I know what I need to do now to kind of work on this and move things forward. And again, Mars is out of bounds until March 9th. So this, really watch your energy levels. Don't overwork. Because for those of you who are prone to overworking, you're going to really, you're going to need to just not take it too far, because you don't want to stress yourself out, especially if you're already noticing that your system is a little bit, what's the word? Delicate. That's not the word I was thinking of, but compromised. If there's any compromise already, don't work so hard on top of it, because then you're really, it's just, because you'll feel like you have the energy. But it's a really good productive Mars. That's a nice thing.
So let me just make sure I understand. It's like you're going to, because it's out of bounds, you're still going to have like tons of energy.
Oh, you might have more than usual.
But Mercury retrograde's having its review, and all the stuff in Pisces is helping us to sort of like grab ideas out of the air. So we could possibly like review or come back to a project and like I know this sounds like real weird, but I'm Pisces. So like something sort of self arises.
Absolutely. And you know what's it's interesting that you say that, because, well, I'm going to talk about it a little more on the new moon, I think, but one thing to think about with Capricorn and Pisces are actually that by sign aspects, which is a very important way to think about aspects actually in traditional astrology. These signs are connected by that sextile. They're 60 degrees apart, right? And so these planets are the planets in Capricorn are actually naturally supporting the planets in Pisces in a very subtle way. It's earth and water. So it's that self-arising in the reflecting, right? Not in the striving of the Capricorn. You work, you show up, you do the work, but you make space for the reflection, right? You make space for the spaciousness. And that's where the things self-arise. So I think it's a work smarter, not harder kind of thing. And I think it's a really interesting combination that you bring up with the retrograde and the Pisces energy.
Sounds like a really good time for collaborations too. Like if, let's say, you saw the recent collaboration I did with Angie Cho. Mm-hmm. Flowers and feng shui and Chinese astrology. Like it feels like a time, from what you're saying, where you could get together with somebody who is in an area that specializes in something you don't, mm-hmm. and sort of create something extraordinary and unusual. Do you think?
Yes, I do think. I think with the Mercury retrograde, it might be ephemeral. It may not be necessarily long lasting, but there's something to be said about creating something in the moment and not having to necessarily always be, I mean, it's almost like, do I make the art for the process of making the art, or do I make the art because I want this to be a perfect painting? You know what I'm saying? That I can put up and everybody's going to admire, and I'm going to feel like it's a job well done. Like and both are fine, but like, I feel like sometimes we skip over the process. And so as long as there's not too much attachment to things staying for a long time, it's like that Pisces, it's like that water energy can just evaporate, water can evaporate, and being in the moment with it, I think it can be a really beautiful time for artistic collaboration, 100%. Because Capricorn also has this really interesting connection to very ancient earth wisdom. If you think about the sea goat, that is the symbol for Capricorn. It's like the goat that's very ambitious and climbing up the mountain, but it's got that mermaid's tail, which really connects it to this very ancient earth wisdom. And so there's something very deep and abiding about that. It's kind of like an old growth forest, or, something like a mountain. And so it's steady, it's stable. And then the rain comes, the water, the mist dances around the mountain, it may not stay forever, but it can, the atmosphere can just create so much beauty and, fresh energy. So there's something about all that I think is pretty interesting that you're bringing up. Does that make sense?
Sounds amazing. I want to be where you're describing. It sounds like the Green Mountains of Taiwan.
I want to go there. I want to go to the Green Mountains of Taiwan. That sounds so beautiful. I think it's going to be, I like this combination, and I like thinking about the way that the planets, Pisces and Capricorn, can support each other. I think that's I like that you brought that up. Do you want to mention anything about your amazing, because we should take a pause. We're almost into week 3, about what are we working with this month? Come on. Everybody wants to know.
Yeah, so if you're in the Flower Evolution program, if you're not, you should be in it, because it's amazing.
Join. Hello. Join.
But if you're not, I'll give you an alternative. If you are in the Flower Evolution, we are working with the epidendrum orchid, there's a lot of different kinds of epidendrums. This one is sort of like a magenta pink. Whoa. And it's interesting. It's like when you're worried that things won't turn out the way you wanted them to, or that you'll miss the boat, or that you'll ultimately be alone, or anything that's sort of like a big fear that's just sort of running in the background, and we just avoid it because we don't want to think about it. This flower helps us experience more freedom and be able to open our hearts and not put up walls and not create barriers and not keep people out. It's like should be interesting with the Mercury and Pisces, but it's very like communicating and going right to the heart of the matter, being clear and direct and heart-centered. And it's like when we can actually stay open to what is versus longing for it to be some other way, then we can be receptive to fortuitous occurrences and synchronistic events. It's like when your heart's open, you can just bloom and you can be open to like so many different pathways and outcomes and not just one right way. You know, like sometimes we think there's one right way. And if we don't get it right, it's all going to fall apart.
Right. End of the world.
Like, did you ever do that where you're just like, what's the best way to do this? And like kind of fixate on the best way? Maybe not, you're Gemini. You're like, there's always a million ways.
I'm like, yeah, there's always a loophole. No, there's always a new way to try something. That's for sure. No, but I know what you mean. No, it's the mind gets stuck. The mind gets stuck and we don't listen to the heart. Like this is like, I think it's actually perfect for the Mercury retrograde because it's like the wisdom of the heart is different than the wisdom of the mind. It's not logical. It doesn't always make sense. You know what I mean? And you try to rationalize it. And so what you're talking about sounds like it's going to help us listen to what's really true at the heart of the matter.
Yes. And I didn't think about this until this very moment, but it's funny that it's the Valentine's Day phenomenon month. But it also helps us understand that there's an abundance of love around us. There's no scarcity. There's no lack. If our expectations for love aren't met in one area, they'll be filled in another area. We don't have to search for love. It's like everywhere around us. So we can just kind of rest into it.
Totally. Well, just the idea of love, because it's like we have this one word that means a million things. And there are so many types of love. And I feel like if you get fixated on like, I'm not getting this kind of love in my life, then you're like missing out like on so many other ways to receive love. Like, I really think that the earth loves me when I take a walk and appreciate the beauty around me. Like I really feel the love of the planet and of like the environment. So
abundance everywhere.
Totally. And it's funny, you would say that, I don't know why, just because I have this card out in front of me, which says love, and it has these two hands reaching for a heart with flowers. So that's good.
And then if you're not in the Flower Revolution, please join. No pressure.
No pressure. And it's such a brilliant program. I've been there from the very beginning. And I'm telling you, all you really have to do is take the elixirs. And if you do, it's magical. And then there's like so much more to it than that. I mean, there's beautiful meditations and beautiful photographs and stories and inspirations. And it's lovely, but like all you really have to do is take this damn elixir and it's so good.
I know.
Really helpful.
But if you're not, we recommend Boundless Wisdom. It's got Bodhi leaf, if you're familiar with the Bodhi tree, where the Buddha sat underneath it until became fully enlightened. And its essence is for boundless wisdom, like unconditional, boundless, beyond space and time type of love, dissolving any sort of negativity and making space, like having experience. Oh God, this is so good for all the Pisces, the spaciousness. Being able to not feel nervous when you're not doing anything. So like when you experience that spaciousness, having it not give you anxiety, but rather being able to like sink into it, enjoy it. And then from that spaciousness, the really like deeper, unexpected flashes of insight and wisdom can make their way up in your consciousness so that you can have this like, oh, got it. Okay. Divine timing and divine understanding of things.
I know. I feel like we really need to, there's a big cultural reprogramming that needs to happen around space and around not being busy all the time. Like it's really challenging for
We're not talking
people.
You know what I mean?
Well, I live alone now, so I definitely have like a lot of not talking that goes on in my space. But yeah, I know exactly.
Like when you go, okay, sorry, I'm just digressing here, but
no, digress. People
like when you get into the airport in Taipei, in Taiwan, there are so many people in that airport. And it's so quiet. It's amazing. It's like, oh, I can finally relax.
It actually is pretty quiet. I've been to that airport randomly. That's one airport I have been to. I haven't like gotten off the airplane. I mean, I haven't gotten into Taiwan, but I've laid over at Taipei a number of times and it is quiet there. You're right.
Even when it's stacked with people. And then you could go out. I mean, this isn't in every restaurant, obviously, but there are some restaurants where you go and it's packed with people and everyone is just eating. They're not talking. They're just eating. It's quiet.
People don't do that anymore. Yeah. Quiet is underrated.
Anyway.
Yes.
Enjoy the space in February and all the love.
I think it's beautiful. And it's great. Those are both really good options to support the energy this month. They're really good. Yay. All right. Those are good. Those are good. And then week 3, Tuesday the 18th, the sun joins the Pisces party. So the sun's going to be in Pisces through March 19th. This means we'll have the sun in Pisces and Mercury in Pisces. And of course, Neptune is in Pisces, has been for a long time. And so, whenever the sun changes signs, it's 30 days through this part of your chart. So again, if you haven't already, look at the Pisces house in your natal chart, because it's going to be time to kind of do a little bit of house cleaning in this part of your life. And so with Pisces, we've got like this soul searching and reflection. It's the last sign of the zodiac, right? It's mutable water, and it's being amplified by the Mercury retrograde. So this is creative, kind of spiritual, compassionate, sensitive, very empathic energy. And if you're feeling really tender, if you don't have good, energetic boundaries that allow you to have your heart open and things like that, there is a tendency for the Pisces, when it's not, living in a more supportive way, to kind of check out, tune out addictive behaviors of all kinds. And this can be like just always talking, or always staying busy, or all the Netflix all the time, or all the chocolate all the time, or 6 bottles of wine instead of 3. I don't know, no morality here. It's just watch that, because there is this escapism that can happen. And with the sun in Pisces and with Neptune there and with Mercury retrograde, if you're feeling overwhelmed, you may want to kind of do a little bit of checking out. So it's not a bad thing if you do, but just notice, right? Notice what comes up and what happens when the sun moves into Pisces for you. It's going to give you a lot of information. It's a great time. And in fact, I think the new moon in Pisces will be a really nice time to maybe start a new meditation practice, but we'll get there in a minute. So that's the sun in Pisces for the month, for 30 days. And then on Thursday, the 20th, we have an aspect that is going to repeat 3 times this year. It's a very nice aspect between some more outlying planets, between Jupiter in Capricorn and Neptune in Pisces. And it's a sextile. We've been talking about how those 2 signs make this kind of connection that can be beneficial. You need to look for the connection with a sextile. It's not like a trine. It's not like everything's flowing. It's not like that, fire trine on that full moon in Leo. It's like, I have to look for where it works. I have to pay attention to this, right? And with Jupiter and Neptune, this is very hopeful, kind of loving, uplifting kind of vibe, right? And so very altruistic and very generous kind of energy. And what I wrote down was really kind of noticing the connections between the physical embodied realms and your spiritual soul realms. Like that, I feel like, is what this aspect is inviting in. And it's kind of connecting these 2 parts of your chart. Of course, if you look at that, and if you don't, just know it's happening. And it's 3 times this year.
Can you repeat what you said about physical and spiritual?
I said that to notice the connections between the physical embodied world, like your surroundings, your body, the earth, 3D, and kind of your spiritual soul, creative self. Because that's that like Pisces energy. And then there's that Capricorn energy, which is so 3rd dimensional and physical, right? Notice what abides. What's abiding, right? Because chances are, even when life is at its craziest, there's some kind of support that abides that you can kind of remember or tune into and really feel that. And by connecting with that, then you're able to make that space for that more reflective kind of soulful inquiry. And this is a beautiful aspect that's happening on this February 20th. It's happening on July 27th. Both planets will be retrograde during that time. And then for a 3rd time on October 12th. And so the outer planets, they're slower moving. And so they don't always make a lot of aspects. So it's a big one. And I feel like collectively it's a good vibe. It's a good thing. We could use it. So it's nice. I like it. And then Friday the 21st, we have some interesting Mars aspects on this day. So Mars is making two strong aspects, a trine to Uranus and Taurus, which is super energizing, right? And then a square to Chiron in Aries. So this might activate some old insecurity. So there might be this like kind of impetus to kind of be bold and take a leap or something, but you also might feel hesitant because you're like, oh, I don't know, will they like me, or is it the right thing that you do? Don't overthink it, and especially if that retrograde is kind of, you're used to thinking really logically and precisely, and you may be like, I just don't know, right? So it's an interesting day. Mars is feeling a little conflicted. And I think with this Mars in Capricorn, again, we've got strong physical vitality, perhaps, depending on your constitution. But with Mars and Uranus, just take care. They're a little unpredictable when they make connections. And again, Mars is a little rogue this month. So, not to hold back on trying something, but maybe it's not the day to go jumping out of an airplane if you've never done it before. But what do I know? Maybe it's exactly the day to do that.
Don't need to jump out of a plane. There's plenty of other.
Me neither. But I know people who do that. So yeah, opening your heart is a bigger risk. Okay. And then we have the new moon on Sunday, the new moon in Pisces, 23rd.
You have to repeat that. That was really good.
Opening your heart is a bigger risk than jumping out of an airplane. It's true. Sunday, 2/23, new moon in Pisces, Pisces. So, it's the new moon. It's the cosmic, conception point of the lunar cycle. And it's kind of fertilizing the energy in your Pisces house. Something interesting is so far this year, well, actually, the new moon in Capricorn was at 4 degrees Capricorn. The new moon in Aquarius was at 4 degrees Aquarius. This new moon in Pisces is at 4 degrees Pisces. I'm finding it fascinating, all these fours happening, because we're also in a 4-year. 2020 is a 4-year. So for whatever reasons, I feel like the lunar cycles are really interesting. I don't think they're going to play out this way all year long, but I'm finding this a very interesting pattern in my own life. So perhaps it's interesting to you. And again, so we got all the Pisces stuff we've been talking about, but in this particular chart, it's very dreamy. We've got that Jupiter and Neptune sextile I spoke about in this chart. And we've got just kind of like an inspired, poetic kind of invitation to set intentions in this part of your life, that Pisces area. And again, I feel like the Pisces new moon is a really great time to start a new meditation practice or a new creative practice or a new practice of sitting and listening. And especially this new moon time, the next couple of days is a really great time to kind of listen for very subtle messages and guidance around which way to move forward on your intentions. A lot of people set intentions right on the new moon, but I really think that the new moon is a process of the balsamic moon, the dark moon, the new moon, and then the crescent moon. And it's kind of like a 3 or 4 day trajectory where, the energy is very, very low and kind of dark. And then it starts to come, more action starts to happen or more light when the crescent moon. So give yourself that space. You don't have to get your intentions down at the exact moment and all that. The cosmos is much more freewheeling than that. So there's a bigger bubble of energy to work with around that. But it's a really nice chart. I feel like there's an invitation to harvest from the past wisdom, but with a new twist. Some of these aspects. It just looks like there's something from the past that's good for you, but there's a new way to try it or something. Yeah. So that's happening on Sunday. And then on Tuesday, the 25th, we've got our Cazimi between the Sun and Mercury. So it's quite near that new moon point. This Cazimi is happening at 6 degrees Pisces. So it means we're kind of halfway through the retrograde cycle. And there's also a Mercury connection to Mars around the same time. So I really feel like it's going to be a day where you might get some intuitive guidance on where to take action. That's what I mean around that new moon intention. I think there might be something coming more around that time where you might feel like, oh yeah, this is the thing. I want to do a new meditation this month, but I'm not quite sure. And you kind of make space to listen. And then you kind of get that information and you're like, oh yeah, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. So the Cazimis are just these exact conjunctions between any planets, but with the Sun and Mercury, it's a beautiful aha moment in the retrograde. It's kind of like clarity for a moment, or like things make sense, and it kind of feels like there's a secret little message or code that got sent to you that you understand, and then you can kind of take it with you for the rest of the retrograde and trust it. It may not make sense to your mind. We've been talking about this a lot this time, but it's going to make sense intuitively. It'll feel good to your energetic system. And, with all this Pisces energy, do take care of like your lymph and your immune system. Like make sure you're drinking enough water and moving your lymph and strengthening your immune system, because the Pisces energy is really sensitive. And so it's very absorbent, and, every little thing, you don't want to pick up every little thing, whether it's energetic or, a physical virus or whatever. So just drink well, take care of yourself, take your tonics, things like that with all this Pisces energy. Do you have something to say about that? You look like you might. No? Katie's Pisces mute over here. Okay. And then the last little bit of the month we have on the 20th. No, that's the 25th. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. The last aspect of the month that I'm going to talk about is on Friday, the 28th, which is a Venus square to Pluto. So there's also a Mercury and Uranus little thing going on as well. So this might feel like some kind of power struggle with an authority figure, or some kind of like old argument, or some kind of need to assert yourself with this square to Pluto, and Venus is in Aries, all independent and assertive, and Pluto's like, the Mercury with Uranus aspect is really inviting you to find a new way to communicate your needs, and really to kind of reclaim your power, like with your sound current. Like, don't waste your words. Just what do you need to say? How can you say it, less words with like more impact kind of thing? I feel like that's, if you find yourself in a situation where you're kind of up against a wall or in a kind of conflict, like really try to get to the truth of the matter and find a new way to like communicate. It's going to work better than the old way, I think. And that's a wrap. And then it's leap year on the 29th. Leap day. Leap day? Is it a leap day, or is it just a leap year? Do you know?
It's an extra day to make a leap year.
Yeah, extra day. But do we call it leap day?
No, we call it leap year.
Who of our listeners are born on leap day? I'm going to call it leap day, although now it sounds like a medical procedure, so I'm not. I wonder if any of our listeners were born on the 29th of February, because then you really only get to have your birthday. You must be really young. You're like,
oh yeah, that's the benefit. You're like 25% of your age, right?
Look at this math wizard right here. 25% of your age. Yeah, that's good. Are you a math genius? I didn't know that about you.
No, but I kind of like it.
Yeah. There's
a little nerd side of me. I was waiting I went out to get folks Vietnamese food today, and I was chatting with Lisa. We have chocolate Lisa.
Yeah.
And we got on a little nerdy math track.
Oh my God, I love it.
Because for some reason, like people have been, it just has like been popping up the last few days about this whole coronavirus thing. Oh. And so I was like, well, let's just do the math. And we got all nerded out about the stats. And it was so great because it's so easy to make people afraid.
Oh yeah.
And kind of like distract them by fear and stuff.
Oh yeah.
But check this out. It's pretty fabulous. So 25 people have died in China, reportedly. There's 1.4 billion people in China. So that means one death per 56 million people. So that means like one person died in the whole country of France.
Oh, wow. That's a really interesting math. One person died in the country. Yeah.
Probably, like Lisa was like, probably more people die of pollution. And then in the US, there's been 5 cases. This is just today.
Yeah.
Right? Today data. Could change. Only 5 people in the US who are infected, but they're stable and they haven't died. That's one person per 70 million. So like people don't need to freak out,
I think these days it just feels like this is interesting topic you bring up, because I think that this is going to perhaps increase. I mean, it's increasing already, but during this retrograde cycle, this like distraction and confusion around the information that's coming in, like this is a really good point, because if you just read the news or just listen to the highlights and you let it really make you anxious,
affect you, make you hysterical,
right? But you don't like spend the time to actually like do the math, and see what that really means. And it's just a distraction from what's really important. And there's enough of that in the world. We've got to stop being swayed by every little thing. I mean, I don't know. There's viruses all the time, everywhere. What are you going to do? The viruses are smart. They're living things.
And they're man-made. So it's kind of like, most of the things going around are man-made these days. So and it's just so wonderful knowing that we don't have to let our emotions be swayed. We can just kind of rest in somebody was asking me like, is there something we should take? Is there a flower essence remedy? Is there some kind of preparation to like make sure all our immune systems are strong? Intuitively, I could be wrong, but I was just kind of like, I just really don't feel like that's that big of a deal at this point. But then when I did the math, it's like, shit.
It's kind of a collective hypnosis. It's part of the collective hypnosis that's going on right now, I think.
And there's a flower for that too. Reminds me, red clover is the either don't watch the news or watch the news and be fine flower. It's like, it would be a great flower for like a 9/11 day when everybody goes into mass hysteria. So on a more subtle note, it's like not freaking out about, obviously 9/11 was something for folks to freak out about, not diminishing that in any way, but like when we watch the news to not get all wrapped up and hysterical about it.
With the coronavirus, let's just keep it on the coronavirus. Like take the red clover, learn about the coronavirus, and you're like, oh yeah, it's fine. It's a virus. Viruses happen. And I do think that anything we can do to support ourselves not being in the trance is important. That's great to know about red clover. I really love red clover tea a lot. Actually, it's one of my favorites. It's so good. Too.
Good blood cleanser, right?
Totally. Do you make one of those?
It's
elixirs?
Inside Radiant Energy.
Oh, is it?
Talk about not giving your energy away to anyone.
Oh, darling, I'm going to spray myself with some right now. Red clover me. Okay. Any events coming up for February at the Song Center and beyond?
Ooh, shoot. I don't know the date yet. We did a new moon Chinese New Year's Eve circle and it doubled in size from last time. It was huge, but it was so fun. I live
nearby. That sounds so fun. I love it.
So we'll post up the date soon. It'll either be, I don't know. You tell me. It's better to do a full moon or new moon. Let's see. Where are we? We had.
I think for your purposes, you should do the new moon in Pisces.
Ooh, new moon in Pisces.
Because for flower elixirs and a meditative experience like that, and it's on a Sunday. The weekend, you know what I mean? So, the full moon's on a weekend too, but I think that's more for like, elixir cocktails or something, full moon. New moons are the more quiet time, the more like meditative time. That sounds like a nice one.
It's so fun. Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually it would be interesting to experience what feels different. We did the first couple on a full moon and then this last one was a new moon. And the new moon was so lively and friendly and happy and joyous. And
new moon in Aquarius, it's a friendly, like, let's be friends, let's hang out together, like collective kind of vibe. That's good.
Yeah. And then we have a whole slew of teaching dates and workshops and events and stuff that will come out hopefully pretty soon.
That's awesome. Awesome. As I go, consults, readings, masterclasses. That's what I'm up to. And I also send out a weekly newsletter with a little bit about, the week's astrology if you want more astrology.
You're such a good writer.
Oh, thanks.
And I can speak from experience. When you have a one-on-one, it's totally different. This is super general, but when you're actually like looking at the effect of the planets in my chart or in my business's chart, it's a whole different conversation.
Mm-hmm. And useful.
Yeah.
Astrology is very useful. That's the thing.
It's a good benchmark. It's a good framework.
I dig it.
We dig it.
We dig it. We dig it. We dig it. We dig flower elixirs. We dig the flower evolution program. Astrology and flower elixirs. It's a very powerful combination.
Yeah. So enjoy this month. It's going to be nice. It's going to be so nice.
I think it's going to be wonderful.
And love yourself up, whether you got a lover or not for Valentine's Day. Love yourself.
That's right. Yes. First and foremost.
Extra chocolate.
Mm-hmm. Or if you're not eating chocolate, extra dates. The jewels. Not like more than one date on Valentine's Day, but hey, if that's your thing, go for it. Venus is in Aries after all.
All right. Happy February.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much for listening to The Flower Lounge. I'm Katie Hess, and we'll be releasing a new podcast every Wednesday. If you like what you heard, or you know someone who might be touched by our conversation, share it with them. And don't forget to subscribe. To find out what your favorite flowers mean about you, take the quiz at LOTUSWEI.com.